I am back here on the Just End the Suffering podcast, talking New York Mets baseball today. Join me today, the creator of the Apple blog, the host of, I forget it's the Simply Amazing podcast. Tim Ryder is here. Tim, how are you?
Great, Mike. Thanks so much for having me.
I got to say, this has definitely been a very strange Mets season. I mean, if you could like quantum leap back in time to February and sell yourself, say, hey, Tim, in June, the Mets are going to miss most of their lineup for a month. They're going to have a lot of pitchers get hurt. They're not going to score a lot of runs. They'll be 30-31 in first place. What would you have said?
I'll take it. I think the last part of that equation is the most important, but it's certainly been a roller coaster.
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, this year, I think obviously the big thing the Mets fans ought to take away from here is just how historically great Jacob deGrom has been. Because, I mean, the man's a national treasure. And he's on the mound, there's just brilliant things happening every time out. He doesn't give up runs. He strikes out a million. He doesn't need sticky stuff to get the job done. What's it been like for you watching Jacob deGrom this year do his work?
Oh, this is something we're watching something story. There's no question about it. The work that he puts in to come to the mound at the level that he does, in addition to the level we've ever seen before. And I think the numbers this year are evidence of that. I mean, a 0.50 ERA in June is historically unheard of. So he's certainly doing special things. I'm very curious to see how he ends, I guess, where his numbers are at the end of the season. As I was saying, he has the chance to do very, very, very special things. He's already doing incredible things, but come September, October, if these numbers are holding up, that's something that the game's never seen before. So it's another level of excellence. It makes you step back for a second and just shake your head.
Yeah, it really does. I also have to say the thing that I'm also curious about, besides how great he's been, is how hard it's been for the Mets to see Francisco Lindor not be consistent, because he has these stretches where he has a couple of games, maybe a week or two, you're saying, oh, wow, he's turning around. He's going to be great again. And then he goes and has like a 2 for 16 and he's slumping again. Like, what you take away from watching Lindor play these first 2.5 months of the Mets?
Well, I think the one thing you can tell even from afar is that he's just as frustrated at the inconsistencies as the fan base is. He had a very, very tough start to the season, picked it up considerably. I picked the stat up on the Apple, I think from May 6th to June 5th. He was the regular Lindor that we're all used to, an OPS well into the 800s, a 280 hitter, all that fun stuff. And his defense has been terrific. The leadership has been everything is advertised. But, I think he followed up that nice stretch with a 5 for 40 or something like that. And, at that point, the consistency questions and the boo birds come back out. In June, he's been one of the Mets' more productive hitters, 256, 337, 500. His weighted runs created plus is actually second on the team in June, behind, of all people, James McCann, which, that's kind of been the story this season. One guy falls behind, a bunch of guys pick you up. And in Lindor's case, I mean, and the revolving cast of guys picking the slack up has been astounding. But at least in Lindor's case, guys have been there to kind of carry the team along. And as you were saying earlier, I mean, the spot that they're in coming up on the end of June, considering all the adversity they've gone through, is just it's amazing. It really is.
Yeah, it is amazing. Also amazing that this team, especially in the middle of May, when all the offensive regulars went down, and you're sitting there as a Met fan, you're going, oh boy, this is going to be a rough month. They're going to have the June swoon. Seems like an annual thing for them since about 2016. But the bench mob has been the key here. They stepped up. You're getting big games from guys like Jose Peraza, McKinney, VR, Pilar. Like, how weird has that been for the Mets to see like these competent like bench options come up here, as opposed to like some of the direct they've had in the past?
Oh, I mean, for years we were conditioned to just say, okay, well, the Mets, they spent their money here, and the rest is going to be a crapshoot. And we were pretty much, set in our ways, like, oh, well, this is how it is. And then, this past offseason, the Mets really made a commitment to adding, capable depth, and it's been a godsend. I mean, anticipating the level of injuries that they faced so far was impossible. Anticipating Billy McKinney or Mason Williams in the starting lineup for a few weeks straight, all just as, unpredictable. But, guys stepped up. And I think over the last couple of weeks, you saw the wheels kind of fall off that wagon as far as productivity. I mean, it was a Band-Aid. It was the best Band-Aid that this organization's ever seen. But I think over the last, like I said, over the last couple of weeks, you saw that kind of fall apart. And now the guys are coming back. Ideally, it'll be a seamless transition. I think Wednesday night, you saw probably the best case scenario. The whole top half of the lineup was back together, and that bench mob will still be an integral piece, an integral part to the equation as far as providing that depth. But now they won't have to be counted on to be such consistent providers like Kevin Pillar. He might be forced out of the starting lineup, but I couldn't think of a more capable, more just A-list bench piece, at least at this point in the 2021 season, than Kevin Pillar.
Yeah, for sure. One guy I want to get your opinion on specifically is Jonathan VR, who I think has added dimension to this team with his defense at third base, where he hasn't played in a while, but he's done very well there. He hasn't seen at the top of the lineup. In me, I feel like I'm in a minority here. I feel like it's going to start shifting a little bit. When JD Davis comes back, do you think VR should stay as the starting third base, or at least get most of the reps over there?
I think we'll see a lot of moving around. I think VR may shift into I don't know if it's going to be a part-time third baseman, because you still got to mix Guillorme in there. Between him and between VR and Guillorme, Guillorme certainly has a better glove than VR. VR's offensive contributions have been invaluable. And like you were saying, he hadn't played third base in such a long time, and he's come in and, he's below league average, but with the way that he's hitting the ball, at least, before he got hurt, I think he was putting up impressive numbers. I wish you had him in front of me, but I don't. But it's been, invaluable if and when JD Davis returns, and if he returns healthy. I guess all the clouds and questions regarding his injury and the time frame on when he could have been back or should have been back, and the setbacks he's experienced. It's put the Mets in a less than enviable position of making things work. I think if McNeil is penciled in at second base, you might have a rotating cast of a Guillorme, VR, and JD Davis when he comes back. I wouldn't even mind seeing Guillorme at second base, McNeil at third or in left when Dom needs a day off, and then you stick VR at third. All these capable options. It's never a bad thing to have, at least for a team in the Mets position where they're trying to get the most out of a deep roster.
Yeah, it certainly makes some sense. I also feel like the offense, also now that we're recording on Thursday between the Braves series, the Phillies series here, like Jeff McNeil's back, Michael Conforto's back. He might have Brandon back by the end of the weekend. So all the offensive pieces starting to flow back in here. And the beginning of the year, when they were all healthy, we're not really hitting, which I don't know, you can attribute that to the baseball, the weather, so on and so forth. But I think for me, the big thing is I want to see this group come together and start hitting it collectively, because they've been pitching well enough. They need the bats. They want to make a deep run this year. What do you think about the offense? How worried are you about the groups that have not been hitting yet?
I'm not concerned. I'm not overly concerned, because you look around the league and you see that the offense is, it's coming in spurts, and that could be the weather. That could be just the funkiness of the last 18 months. Guys finally finding their rhythm now. I think the absence of sticky substances is only going to increase the offense. But as far as the Mets, having that, top-notch roster in place, where if this is the starting lineup that they built, that they had in mind, hopefully they do something about the rotation, because those, the top three are great and Peterson's coming around, but now there's holes because the injuries are hitting. There's going to be more. But as far as the offense, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off track. As far as the offense goes, yeah, I'm not overly concerned, because now that as you mentioned, you're bringing the Michael Confortos and the Jeff McNeils and the Brandon Nimmos back. It's going to change the dynamic of the lineup itself. It's going to offer your bigger hitters, your Alonsos and your Lindors, and it's going to offer everybody protection behind them, which over the last 2 months, they haven't always had. I think it's going to change the approach of opposing pitchers. They have to attack guys instead of maybe dancing around the strike zone, maybe, and not pitching around anybody, but, now they have to induce contact from, say, a Lindor, instead of putting it just in the spot that he's going to be vulnerable in. And it's going to kind of have ripple effects right down the lineup. And I think that's going to have the most long-term effect as far as getting everyone back into a groove. I think early in the season, the runners in scoring position, that might have just been a kind of a product of everybody pushing. Expectations are really high. I do feel that this team is going to come around, and I think they've built themselves a really nice cushion so that if there are hiccups or a less than seamless time in transition between this bench mob era and the guys coming back, there's some wiggle room to get things right. And I think Luis Rojas is probably right at the top of that list of driving forces behind kind of keeping everyone motivated.
Yeah, let's talk about him for a minute, because obviously it's like his second year as the skipper. First year, he kind of write off because of the weird COVID year, and he's getting the job in January because of the Beltran situation. Now we've seen him basically in action for a couple months. I mean, he still makes some decisions in game that I think are questionable, but you don't know, because obviously he's dealing with half a roster, so he's done a good job keeping the ship afloat. So
sure,
if you were to write the book on Luis Rojas right now, like what would you say? What kind of manager you make him out to be?
I will certainly concede that he's made some decisions that, of course, in hindsight, are questionable. I think that every decision that has been questioned, the logic behind it has been there. It's a gamble, and managers have to take gambles sometimes. But again, that's only half of the manager's job is the lineup construction, which throw that out the window. This year's been just I think that's not even on the chart right now. The other outside of in-game decisions, it's keeping your team motivated. Like I was just saying, on that front, I mean, 13 out of 10, he's been terrific, outstanding, just to keep these guys in the game and continuously charging forward with the amount of just obstacles that have been thrown in their way. That's impressive in itself. And I think if the San Francisco Giants weren't doing such amazing things out west, I think that Rojas would probably be a shoo-in for National League Manager of the Year, depending on how the team finishes, both teams finish. I think he'll be in that conversation for sure. And as far as the in-game decisions part, as I was saying, yeah, he's made a couple of I guess you can call them blunders, but I call him, he gambled and lost. That's how I look at it. You have to remember he hasn't even managed a full season yet, as far as counting games. You have to, there's going to be growing pains. And I know he's been a manager in the minor leagues for a long time, and he has the seasoning to know this game at the level that he does and kind of take it to the major league level. But yeah, I'm not overly concerned with the decisions that don't pan out. I'm more concerned with the culture that he's built inside the clubhouse, along with the other veterans in the clubhouse, and I think that's been huge. But yeah, I like Luis Rojas, and I think he is the guy for this job.
Yeah, we'll see how they do going forward here. I also think another big surprise, it doesn't get talked about nearly enough because of all the bench mob stuff. The bullpen for the Mets has been very, very good this year. Because I mean, we're used to years of having maybe two relievers that are good, and the rest are throwing Castillo in the fire when they come in the game. But they have built a nice arsenal of capable guys who can throw hard, mix things up, different looks. So this what I think Sandy Olson always wanted to have for a bullpen, but never really had the resources to properly construct. So what do you think about the Met bullpen so far?
There's inconsistencies there too, especially in recent weeks. I think losing the long depth in Robert Gsellman is really going to hurt them. Not really going to hurt them, but it's certainly going to put a dent in the approach that they've used, especially with the back end of the rotation being sort of in flux. You don't know exactly how long you're going to get out of a Peterson or now a Tyler McGill. I think losing Gsellman might kind of hurt that structure that was there, but Trevor Mays rebounded very nicely after a really tough stretch. Familia and Miguel Castro, who have, were both on terrific tears to start the year. They've kind of taken a step back. I think it's only a matter of time before they find their way. Aaron Loop's been terrific, just outstanding in every way. And even Barnes, Jacob Barnes, who was here for a little bit, and he's gone. He's in Toronto now. But, it's like, as I said before, it takes an entire village to do these things. And now you see Edwin Diaz stepping in, getting really big outs. These are all going to be very, very important pieces to the puzzle. I think Lindor said it on Wednesday after the game. This is a puzzle, and now the puzzle is coming together, and it's really fun to see. But Edwin Diaz is the glue, and he's the one who's been able to just go above and beyond in keeping things in order. And he's given you multiple innings. I think Rojas has learned you don't use him in non-save situations when it's absolutely necessary. But when he's used correctly, he's one of the best closers in the game. He's the guy the Mets traded for in 2019. And I think that kind of brings everyone behind him into place. And if you have guys like Familia and May and Castro pitching up to their capabilities, I mean, that's a back four that really can't be touched if they're all on their game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now the biggest need to me, in my personal opinion, is just getting depth in this rotation, because obviously losing Lucchesi and Tommy John, we didn't think it was a big deal a couple weeks ago, now is, and Peterson's been inconsistent. This is also partially because all the depth they built sort of evaporated because Carlos Carrasco is still not back. Noah Syndergaard had a setback. Like, how important is it for them to go out and get a starter here? And who are some guys you think they would be looking at?
Well, if it was my pick, and if Cincinnati's moving him, the first guy I go after is Luis Castillo. He's having a tough year in Cincinnati, but he is one of the top pitching talents in baseball. He's a free agent through 2024, I believe, or he hits the market in 2024. And that's a guy who, when he's right, he is he's a game changer, and he can absolutely solidify the back end of this rotation. As far as his troubles this season, I think he gave Jeremy Hefner and Jeremy Accardo and the rest of the Mets analytics staff a couple of weeks with him, and I think that those will be straightened out right away. And that's not a knock on Cincinnati. They have a very, very good staff over there. But just sometimes a new set of eyes is all it takes. Sometimes a change of scenery is all it takes. And yeah, he would be my pick. I think you have to go somewhere like Colorado and talk to them about John Gray or German Marquez. Both very, very good pitchers. And, for a team like the Rockies who are out of it, it's something to consider on their end. I don't know what the asking price will be for any of these guys, but, the Mets said in the offseason that they really weren't willing to part with any of their top end prospects. And that's understandable. The last regime kind of tore apart this whole farm system, but where the Mets stand now and where they can be in a few months if they make the right moves soon, I think, back to gambling, I think it's the risk that you have to take. And, maybe you might see a Ronnie Mauricio get moved or a Brett Beatty get moved. But, if you're bringing in the right player, and this is, I'd hate to bring in a rental for someone like that, like it's a Jose Berrios. I believe he has another year of control outside of this year. That could be another option. Very, very great pitcher. You have to wonder what the Twins are looking for. They're going to have options. They're going to have teams who are saying, "Oh, we'll take this," but you're going to pay out the nose for it. And if the negotiations stall somewhere and say, "Well, this is our only option," you kind of have to consider it. Just considering how close they are to kind of reaching a goal after all the adversity. And it's not a position I'm happy not to be in the position that they're in as far as making these decisions.
Yeah, I think if I was running a team, I think obviously I wanted to add like a starter who can give me innings back there, because I know I don't know when I'm getting Carrasco. If he shows up, great. If he doesn't, I need to have an option there. I think it's one thing I would look at. And the other thing I would consider here is add another arm to that bullpen, just because, as you said, losing Gesellman hurts, and another lefty would be ideal because Aaron Luke's the only one out there. I think you do those two things, I think you're in good shape in the National League East. Yeah,
I wouldn't mind a bullpen arm. Earlier in the year, I would have said add an outfielder, because you don't know what's going on with Nimmo when his hand was, there was, it was pretty much indefinite. They had to wait for him to swing pain free. And at that point, it's like, oh, you have to start looking at outfielders. I think that's all changed now. I think McKinney coming out of a starting position kind of shores that up. Infield depth is fine. Yeah, I'd like to see pitching help. I'm curious to see if they do dip into the bullpen. I'm curious to see if they value a left-hander as much as they would a couple of years ago with the 3-batter rule. Because, having Loop out there and, that's well and good, but you sort of need another.
Yeah. So I think the other thing to watch with the Mets is obviously at least is stunk for the most part. So that's why part of the reason why they've been able to maintain his lead with this in half the roster. But I'm trying to figure out who the biggest threat is, because after watching the Braves the last couple of weeks, I don't think it's them, and the Phillies are the Phillies. Do you think Washington might be that team that gives them the most trouble?
Well, I think Washington, I think they all have have the ability, if they're all playing up to their capability, they are all very, very good teams. I think the Phillies are lacking in pitching, starting pitching, and bullpen. I think the Braves are certainly lacking in bullpen. The Braves offense, to me, that probably poses the most potential threat if everyone's clicking there. And you can look to the Albies and you can look to the Acuñas and the Freemans, but if Ozzie Albies is hitting in addition to those two, that's a formidable trio. I really do. I enjoy watching the Braves, even the Nationals. I think they just won 9 out of 10. If Josh Bell comes around, if Soto comes around, yeah, if Trey Turner keeps on just having the outstanding under the radar seasons he's been having, there's certainly going to be a lot of competition. I think the Mets head into Wednesday. They came into Wednesday's games. They were in first, and Braves, Phillies, and Nationals were all 4 games behind. So that just kind of gives a glimpse of how this division could shake out. I'm very curious to see who else makes moves in the division. Curious to see whether Miami kind of throws up a white flag, maybe shops some of their veterans. I don't think it's going to be a runaway by any means. I think there's going to be a lot of action. If I had to pick one, it'd probably be Atlanta, just because of the experience.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think it's going to be interesting to see them go down the stretch, because obviously, like, they get the division, they're in a pretty good spot if they reach the postseason, because then they don't have to deal with that wild card mess that they had in 16, where they win the one game. The West team's going to kill each other in terms of that, and then you're sitting there and you deal with the Central team. You have a path where you can potentially get to the NLCS. Have to deal with only one of those 3 teams out west. So the Mets have I think, a golden opportunity if they take advantage of it.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's where the trade deadline ties in. Like, if they think that they can make a real push, I think all your cards are on the table, and you just make the best move. It's for your organization at that time, because bringing a World Series to this fan base, to this organization, to start off this new ownership regime, it's the chance to do something very special. After the last 18 months that we all went through as a society, even more so. Just, I'm not sure if you're a hockey fan, but what the Islanders are doing now and how that fan base is just riled up, and I listened down my window last night. You could hear multiple houses in my neighborhood. I'm on Long Island, and you could hear multiple houses in the area just absolutely going crazy. And, if that happens with the Mets, forget about it. It's, it's magic. And I think they have the opportunity to do that and keep on playing well. And that opportunity could present itself.
Certainly could, Tim. Thanks all the time. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, how can people follow social media, keep up with your blog and your podcast?
I'm over on Twitter. You could find me there. It's at Timothy R. Ryder, Ryder, like the moving truck. On that page, you'll see links to the Apple. The domain name is a little lengthy because it's on Substack. So it's theapplenym.substack.com. Again, you can go right to my Twitter page and you can find the links there. I share everything there as well. The podcast is Simply Amazin. That's on anywhere you listen to podcasts, but Apple, Spotify, it's on Google, I believe. Yeah, Stitcher, all those outlets. And I'm actually starting to do Mets minors coverage over at prospects1500.com. So check that out as well.
Yeah, it's really a good time you're checking those prospects, because that Brooklyn team has a lot of good ones.
Oh man, I'm still yet to get out there. Tickets are a hot ticket. All things considered, it's really, really tough to find a ticket right now.
All right, Tim. Thanks all the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Anytime.